Welcome, everyone. Very excited to be here and with the people that are our guests today, relaunching Rubach Wealth Living Room Giving in preparation for Giving Tuesday next week. The whole idea of having Living Room Giving today was to give a brief description of what's been happening with the charitable sector during and post-pandemic, whatever that means these days. And from our clients' perspective, my clients ask, like, how do you get involved in philanthropy? How do you talk to the next generation about philanthropy? And there's this misconception that you need to be a millionaire before you get involved in philanthropy. And my answer to them is, first, you need to make sure that you are putting your mask on first, that you don't outlive your savings. No, you don't have to be a millionaire to do it. And beyond that, let's demystify the whole concept of philanthropy, because there are multiple ways of getting involved in philanthropy beyond writing a check. So today we are here with Bruce MacDonald from Imagine Canada, I'll let him talk about Imagine Canada in deeper detail. Ellen Schwartz from Project Give Back, who has a fantastic initiative, and we've had her before at with our Living Room Giving. And Emily Strike, who is herself a young philanthropist, has been the recipient of philanthropy and is passionate about carrying on with the message. So without further ado, I'll pass on the virtual mic to Bruce, and we're going to have a 35-minute discussion, and then we will allow for Q&A, and the more questions you throw at us, the better. The complex is good. Bruce, welcome, and thank you.
Oh, thanks very much for the opportunity and hosting this today to have this conversation. So I'll start with the most terrifying part of these sessions, which is sharing my screen and making sure the technology works. So Elke, you're still in my line of sight. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see a slide that says the impact of COVID-19? Okay, great. So today we're just going to have I'm going to kind of kick things off by setting the table in terms of where things are at. What's the state of the sector right now? For those of you who aren't familiar with Imagine Canada, we're a national registered charity. What we kind of seek to do is influence the operating environment in which charities, nonprofits, and social enterprises function. And we do that primarily through four ways: through the creation of data, and you're going to see some of that now. We're public policy advocates with the federal government in Ottawa, so we're sort of the eyes and ears of the sector at the federal level. We don't do provincial advocacy, focusing exclusively on what happens at the federal government level. We actually certify charities for good governance, transparency, and accountability. We have a full-fledged accreditation program. And kind of a more emergent area for us is connecting with Canadians to talk deeply about social good. And I think at a time during the pandemic, communities have turned to charities and nonprofits in ways they've never done before. And I'm going to show you a little bit about that. So to kick things off, what I'm going to do is just talk to you a little bit about some data. So we have this polling tool called the Sector Monitor. We go out and survey the leaders of between 3,000 and 4,000 charities at a time. We usually get somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 responses. So again, if you think of a usual public opinion poll in Canada, 1,000 Canadians said, well, we're working with a much smaller starting point, and we usually get close to 2,000 respondents. So they're pretty representative of the sector. We've done this 3 times since the start of the pandemic. And so I'm just going to share with you kind of where we're at from a sectoral perspective. Essentially, it's kind of a dual narrative. One is that the sector is caught in a vice. On one hand, Canadians have needed our services more than ever before. And on the other hand, organizations are working with revenue streams, many of which have collapsed. And a more emergent narrative too is, as Canada is poised for recovery, many organizations in our sector are still in stabilization mode. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But let's explore the two sides of the vice. The first is around rising demand. Since the start of the pandemic, the rise in demand for services has been continual. Right back in the spring of 2020 at 35%, it's risen now to the point where it's effectively 1 in 2 charities are reporting that more people are coming to them for services than before the start of the pandemic. So half almost of organizations. And they're now trying to meet this with fewer resources, including and in particular volunteers, where having in-person volunteer experience has been challenging. On the other half, on the other side of the other side of the vice is decreasing supply. About half of charities are reporting a decline in revenues since the onset of the pandemic, and that average decline is 44%. And if you put it in context, we went and asked charities the same question in 2009 at the height of the worldwide economic collapse. The average decline at that point, 1%. So it gives you a sense of the magnitude of the impact negatively of revenues for organizations. 75% have had a decline in at least one type of donation, and those that are focused on in-person fundraising, you can see event-based fundraising has seen the most pronounced decline. And like the economy writ large, we're witnessing this K-shaped recovery in our sector. There are some charities that have seen a rise in demand for their services, but whether it's government, corporations, individuals, foundations have responded, and there's been an increase in supply, not usually enough to match the full demand, but there has been this growth. And on the other hand, there's been organizations and causes, we call them the languishing subsectors, where both demand and supply have been down. And if you look at that, really the ones that have been hurt, arts, culture, recreation, sport organizations, they're, over twice as likely as other organizations to, suspend operations or close. The two common denominators there, they are in-person based programmatic events. You go to witness a theater performance or see or hear an orchestra, or you go to the gym at a YMCA or YWCA or a breakfast program for a boys and girls club. And linked to that is that they have earned income models. You sell tickets to the theater, you buy a gym membership. And so with the collapse in demand, the ability to provide the services, along with that went the revenue streams. As well, those really small organizations, these community-focused organizations, they may be a one-off in one town or one city. They're more likely to have decreased capacity and in some cases temporarily suspend operations. And unfortunately, we're also seeing sort of more permanent closures. So I don't get a lot of requests to be a motivational speaker these days because the numbers aren't exactly the rosiest. But what does it all mean in terms of going forward? As we think about this future of philanthropy that we're going to talk about today, I think in the short term, there's a few things that we're keeping an eye on. One is heading into 2022, this idea that as federal support programs, particularly something like the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which have now ended, when you combine that with delays in the restart of in-person fundraising, we're a bit worried about whether there's going to be another kind of grim period for organizations. Some of our sector monitor polling showed about half of organizations that were eligible for the wage subsidy took advantage of it, and that was supporting 55% of their staff. Well, if that revenue is now gone and they haven't been able to restart other revenues, it's a question mark about how they'll be able to continue to keep these staff to run the programs. The second thing is around, more of a macro issue that, this idea of increased competition from the private sector to attract and retain talent. Our sector employs 2.4 million Canadians, 75 to 80% of whom are women. And we're now seeing MacDonald's offering $1,000 signing bonuses to go work at MacDonald's. Charities will not be able to compete with that. So what does the future of talent look like in our sector? And as well, the continual challenges to leverage digital opportunities. The pandemic has shone a spotlight on a misaligned funding model where donors have been preoccupied with the idea of cost of administration. And unfortunately, for many organizations, technology, staff to know technology, cloud-based services, even the hardware have all fallen into that bucket. And this sector was woefully unprepared at the start of the pandemic from a technological perspective. And as we envision a digital future, how can we change the funding model to support that? So our organizations are going to look to Canadians for continuing support, including a new emphasis on new Canadians. We've done some work to show that new people, immigrants coming to this country, incredibly generous, wanted to engage with their communities right from the time that they arrive in our communities. Building relationships for legacy giving. And we're seeing things like the Canadian Association of Gift Planners doing a willpower campaign to increase the percentage of Canadians who leave gifts to charities and nonprofits in their wills. It's very timely given the aging population that we have, the concentration of wealth in more affluent, and as well young people. And Imagine Canada itself is spending some time thinking about this idea of how do we go from a system or a society that was a charitable system designed for and by boomers to a social goods system that needs to engage successive generations. And that change of language is intentional because we're asking questions of organizations around how are they finding new life in engaging the next generation. Some of our research has shown that if you look at generations, silent boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, etc., at the same stage in their life, they're getting less generous. And so how do we ensure that the wonderful support that communities have had through organizations continues in the future? And it's interesting because this, so it's just sort of the last slide here before I pass the baton back is, if you think about, the future of philanthropy and the future of giving, for many young people, it's viewed quite differently than it was for their parents or grandparents. And this is a great report called the Millennials Impact Report, which is a 10-year retrospective of, in a sense, behavior and study. And what they found that younger people have expressed or demonstrated the belief that their time, skills, talent, money, voice, purchasing power, and ability to network all have equal value, and they offer them as such. This generation does not prize being a financial donor above being a volunteer, or activating their peer network as more valuable than signing a petition. When they're inspired to do something, they see their behavior, no matter what it is, as significant support. So it speaks to a change of ideology, a change of philosophy, a change of values compared to their parents' or grandparents' generation. The challenge, of course, for charitable organizations is that all of that stuff is good, yet they still need to have money to be able to run their programs. So I think parts of the questions here is, how do we adapt? How do we engage? How do we change our messages? How do we authentically reach out and build relationships with younger people? So in terms of thinking about the future of philanthropy, there's lots that we're thinking about. And with that, I'll pass the baton back.
Thanks, Bruce. It's not necessarily uplifting, but we still have hope. And in that regard, who better than Ellen to talk to us about how she introduces philanthropy and giving back than someone who's a teacher and has the most amazing initiative in her hands. So Ellen, please welcome back, and microphone over to you.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Elke. Bruce, that was very eye-opening. Thank you so much for that impactful presentation. And, you said it, how do you get young people to become givers, in the future? How do we carry it on? Like many of you go to fundraisers, or you look at hospital boards and you see who the givers are. It's the same names over and over and over again. How do we change that? How do we light the spark up in young people like Emily, who you're going to meet? And I have that answer. So, or hopefully I have that answer, but I'm seeing it over and over again. It all started with me. I was a teacher and I taught for 25 years in a classroom. And 24 years ago, our firstborn son was diagnosed with a fatal neurodegenerative disease. So he wasn't able to walk or talk or see or move. And I was a classroom teacher. And everything in my life turned upside down, including what I wanted to teach my students. So I kind of took all the lessons that Jakey, that was our son, was teaching me about acceptance, about giving, about empowerment, and created this program in my own personal classroom, called it Project Give Back. The boomerang was a logo, and when you throw out kindness, it comes back to you. So that just, whenever I said the word Project Give Back, that was what the kids thought. Boom. Boom, boom, it keeps coming back. And every lesson kind of expresses that. So, and it's all by storytelling. If we can have children or older children like Emily, find out what ignites them, like what charity speaks to them. All of us have a charity that's in our hearts. All of us do. There's something that has happened in our lives that is an extension of a charity. So all of us have something. So I share Jakey's story and the charities that we started. We launched Jacob's Ladder, Canadian Foundation for Control of Neurodegenerative Disease, and Project Give Back. So I tell them Jakey's story, and I say, okay, guys, go home and find your story. What matters to you? And they come back with whatever it is: Parkinson's disease, Princess Margaret Hospital, animal charities, environmental charities, sports charities, whatever it may be. And we take them on a philanthropic journey. And they reach out to their charities. They actually make a phone call. These are kids in grade 5 to grade 8. So they say, hey, Imagine Canada, my name is, and I'm at this school, I'm in grade 5. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. It's such amazing work. And they say why and how it's impactful. So just that small little exercise to reach out and tell somebody how amazing they are makes them feel good. Right? It gives them a sense of purpose and meaning. And then we continue on. We teach them how to research. We teach them how to write a speech. We teach them how to speak from their heart and not from a piece of paper. So then what happens is all the classes turn around where the children become the teachers and we become the students. And they talk about what their cause is and why it matters and why it's so important. And they take us on the website and they show us a video, and we all get to learn about each other through a very unique lens. But what happens is empathy is born, and the children begin to see life through like I said, a completely different lens, and they want to help, they want to give. And if you start small by finding that passion, that thing, it can create a much bigger picture down the line. And we see this over and over and over again. You know, we had one student, just a small little example, talk about his Tourette's. So he loves poetry. So he created a book of poems, started selling the book of poems, and raised thousands of dollars for Tourette Canada. We see this over and over and over again. And it's creating just young, impactful leaders who really care and want to give. And it's not because they have to, it's because they want to. So that's kind of what Project Give Back's all about. And that's really, I think, if we can inspire young people, very young, just small, just not massive amounts, it grows into something that can be very impactful. And that's and then it leads us to Emily, who is a perfect example of this. So thank you, everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name's Emily. Thank you so much, Ellen. That was amazing. And Bruce, thank you. I think it's really important to bring attention to how COVID has impacted, obviously so many aspects of the world, but fundraising is a big one. And I think it might not be the first one that a lot of people think about, but in the end, it's the sector that kind of brings light to all the important challenges that a diverse amount of people face in this world. So thank you guys so much for what you said so far. So my name is Emily again. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, and I'm a third-year psychology and health studies student at Queen's University. A bit about me: I love to run, I play sports, my favorite place to be is my cottage, and I'm a huge Maple Leafs fan. So I'm an active cystic fibrosis advocate. I am a former Sick Kids patient ambassador, and I am team captain of M's Entourage. I've raised over $125,000 to date through various fundraisers, and I'm the co-founder of CF Breathe and Believe, which is an Instagram account dedicated to patient advocacy. So how did I get here, and why do I do this? Well, it all starts back at the beginning for me. I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at 6 weeks old, and my life has been one heck of a roller coaster ever since. When I failed to thrive as a newborn, my parents took me to many hospitals, undergoing test after test to figure out what was wrong. And just when all seemed hopeless, my parents found Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. They learned when I was only 6 weeks old that I had a genetic disease called cystic fibrosis, the most common fatal genetic disease that affects Canadian children and young adults. So cystic fibrosis, or CF for short, mainly affects the respiratory and digestive systems. Every morning and every night, I do physiotherapy for my lungs so that they stay healthy. I also take several pills, puffers, and inhaled medications daily. A fun fact, 2 people with CF cannot be within 6 feet of each other, as we each carry bacteria in our lungs that could be harmful to one another. Does this sound familiar? Well, CFers have been social distancing way before the COVID pandemic. So I've always had to take out time from activities or being with friends to keep up with my treatments and my health. And, with multiple surgeries, x-rays, blood work, scans, over 100 visits to the CF clinic, and over 1,000 hours hooked up to an IV in hospital, I am not your average person. I don't take anything for granted. I have unshakable faith, and I live my life with hope. So one particular lesson that I've learned along my journey is the value of giving back. So ever since I was little, I loved to sing and dance and perform in front of others. So when I was 10 years old, my mom thought it was time that I put my talent to use. I spoke at a CF gala about my life with CF, and I was able to immediately see the impact in the donation auction that followed, where people were raising their hands to donate thousands of dollars towards my cause. I could not believe my eyes. I felt like a superhero whose words had these special powers to make people give, and I wanted to do it again and again and again. So from then on, I continued public speaking for Cystic Fibrosis Canada, as well as Sick Kids Hospital as a patient ambassador. I even got the special opportunity to speak at the annual Sick Kids Board of Directors meeting in 2018, which was actually the year that I transitioned from Sick Kids to the adult CF clinic at St. Michael's Hospital. And so I had the chance to speak about the positive and profound impact that Sick Kids had on myself and my family during my 18 years there as a patient. I didn't always speak for Sick Kids though. Once I walked down a runway, that's right, I had the incredible honor of being a patient model in the Fashion Heels for Sick Kids charity fashion show, which is of course where I met the lovely Elkie. I was blown away by her and her team's dedication to the cause and by the art of so many current and former Sick Kids patients coming together, each with their own unique stories. I had an absolute blast, and I can honestly say it is the most fashionable I've felt to date. I've been walking for years off the runway too. I've participated in the annual Walk to Make Cystic Fibrosis History for truly as long as I can remember. Most years it's been held at the Toronto Zoo, and more recently at Canada's Wonderland pre-COVID, which is really fun. So I'm the captain of my team. We're called M's Entourage, and we've raised over like $150,000 to date. We average around $10,000 a year. I am so incredibly grateful to have the support system I do, and I could not accomplish that without my amazing family and friends who don't fail to surprise me every year. So with all of these amazing opportunities as a teenager, I undoubtedly took my cause and positive drive with me to Queen's, where I began my undergraduate dual degree in psychology and health studies here in September 2019. So I became an orientation leader. I joined the Queen's Pre-Law Society. I tried a whole bunch of intramural sports, but I found that my favorite time was donated to Queen Shinerama, which is our university's chapter of the Canada-wide organization that raises funds for CF research and care. So I soon realized that my philanthropic passion was ongoing, and I followed it all the way to where I am now. So I'm in my 3rd year, and my current position is co-chair. So I'm responsible for leading a team of executives in organizing various fundraising events throughout the year. And COVID has definitely made this very challenging. But so far we've hosted, virtual trivia nights and speaker series on Zoom. We've sold raffle tickets, we've auctioned off prizes, and we have delivered hundreds of cookies to all the students in the student ghetto, which was very fun. So we've raised over $1,000 this semester already, and we're anxiously planning for the next. So yeah, being able to participate in these various events, it means the world to me. To me, giving back is one of the best feelings you can experience. It's a way to demonstrate gratitude for my community and to support their incredible initiatives dedicated to helping others. And, while my involvement may seem very personal, it truly is so much more. So I had the incredible opportunity in 2016 to start a drug called Orkambi, and it has completely changed my life. I've been able to get to where I am and make my dreams for the future a reality while being myself and doing the things I love to do. So I desperately want this for all people living with CF. However, CF is a genetic disease, which means it looks and is treated very differently in each person. So the most recent development, though, in CF research is a drug called Trikafta, which is a huge deal as it's the first of its kind to be compatible with over 90% of the CF population, which is huge. And it's the closest thing that our community has to a cure. So I'm overjoyed that Trikafta is now being available in Canada, but I have to say it was a very hard, very long, hard-fought road to get there, as Canada is one of the only developed nations without a rare disease strategy. So, this demonstrates the need to keep fighting for a cause you believe in. No matter how far you've come, there's always so much further to go. And as I get older, I'm learning that that's true in terms of my health as well. I've experienced some new hurdles in the last few years, such as being diagnosed with cystic fibrosis-related diabetes, so CFRD, 3 days before I left for university. You can imagine the shock and kind of hurdle that gave me. So it initially seemed impossible to handle, but fundraising for diabetes research has allowed for incredible advancements in technology. Did you know that I can scan my blood sugar with my phone? See, I told you I was a superhero. The point is that I'm still able to be me because of resources made possible by people who care. To me, philanthropy is more than giving a speech or getting a donation. I know firsthand how it can change lives. And I think that it is so important for my generation to find a cause, as Ellen mentioned. So growing up, my parents would tell me, you're not alone. If you look around, everyone has something that they struggle with or that challenges them. And I think, honestly, this could not be more true. Every single person that I've met has been impacted by a cause, be it directly or indirectly. So my suggestion to others my age is to act on it. Find a cause that motivates you, that drives you, that you care about, and then tell the world why they should care about it too. Specifically, I think my generation should take advantage of social media. We're really good at it, so why don't we create some positive impact? There can be tons of negativity, gossip, and misinformation online, but it can be overpowered by positivity, education, and change. So a very Gen Z project of mine is my Instagram account that I run with one of my best friends and fellow CF patients, Lauren. And what started as a way to update friends and family on our journeys has evolved into this platform that raises awareness for not just CF, but all chronic illnesses. And it highlights the patient experience and patient advocacy. And really, it's a place that can kind of connect members of the CF community and just really raise awareness. And, we humans are wired to support one another, as I'm currently studying in my developmental psychology course. And I honestly think that bringing people together to support a cause is one of the most incredible aspects of humanity. So to conclude, living with CF has definitely shaped me into the person I am today, and I'm really proud of who that is. I wouldn't be where I am without the constant support of my incredible family and friends, and especially my special bond with other CF patients like Lauren, who inspire me to keep fighting on the toughest days. It is because of philanthropy and fundraising efforts and people who care that I'm allowed to truly believe that one day CF will stand for not cystic fibrosis, but cure found. And I cannot wait for that day. Philanthropy is the shooting star that lights up the whole galaxy with hope. Thank you.
What do we say? I never fail. This kid has a superpower to make me cry every time. So here I am fighting, setting up tax plans and so on. And she comes and like, hi. Anyway, so, okay, I'll get it together, but eventually. My point is, Emily, you owe me one. So my point is, today we have cystic fibrosis, we have Imagine Canada, we have Project Give Back, we have the Leukemia Society here, we have Opportunity International. It doesn't need to necessarily be an illness, right? Project Give Back is really, I think if I had to simplify it, is allowing kids to open the eyes and realize that there's other stuff out there. You know, in our world, we're running fast, running furious. And when we deal with families, there's a lot of confusion and people kind of lose the sense of purpose. And when you have people about to retire, they know that their whole persona is defined by career achievement, net worth, and so on. But when you flip the conversation to philanthropy, it's never about money. It's relevance, helping. And I always say there are more causes and excuses to get involved, right? And if it's not an illness, it's literacy, social mobility, it's, you know, name it, like there's more than I can name. And the important thing is, there are so many issues that if we're waiting for the government to get to them, it's not going to happen. And by the time they get to those issues, it will be too late. So helping women, children, men, whatever, like doesn't matter, be colorblind, get ahead, be the mentor, be the facilitator. That will make it a better place. So yeah, philanthropy is great when somebody cuts a $1 million check. But if you have 100, we'll take it, right? But if you have 100 people getting involved and they each raise maybe not $1 million, but their little bit, we'll get to the $1 million too. But the power of ambassadorship is so much greater. Changing the discourse to a positive one, instead of hearing, you know, COVID numbers are up and everybody's going, like everybody's at risk and everything's negative. Let's turn it around. So I'll open it to questions, but I'll let Ellen take over first while I clean my tears. I never fail.
Oh, that's what we say to our kids all the time, because often tears will roll. And the comment is always, you know what? Don't be afraid of that. That means that you're feeling, that means that you know, you're kind and you're warm and you care. And that's a great thing. If you're becoming overwhelmed, that's good. That's good. That's passion, right? Emily, first of all, that was superb. Absolutely superb. I wish the world can hear that. We all need to hear
So
that.
much. Thank you. And Elke, I'm sorry. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'm going to edit the video. I'm going to chop me out. And then we're going to circulate this.
Don't.
I'm supposed to be tough, you know.
No, that's so important, Elke. It's so important for people to see that, and to people to reach out and to see each other's vulnerability. That's strength. So don't you dare take that out. That's so honest and raw and real. But I wanted to add a little bit to what you were talking about is, and here's just one little example of when you start very small, and it can turn into something quite large. Since COVID hit, we started a weekly concert on Zoom, which is catered to the special needs community. And it, you know, in honor of my son, Jakey, because music touched his soul. And that was the way he he spoke, or he listened anyway. So every Sunday since February 2020, we have had this at 4 o'clock, and it's all needs, all abilities from the age of 3 to the age of 103. And there's a whole set list, and it's a beautiful concert. That's what I'm saying. If you find that spark and you find that passion, the possibilities are endless to what can happen with that passion. That was kind of where I wanted to go there.
Thanks, Ellen. So we'll open it up to whoever wants to jump in. Just put your little virtual hand or use your hand or open your camera, whatever you want. And do you have any questions? Anything we can do for you? Anything that you've always wanted to ask but were afraid to? No judgment. I've done the stellar performance here. Any questions? Okay, see one coming.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm Zoom illiterate. Sorry, I have problems with Zoom. I'm Robin Pascoe in Vancouver. And I just want to say I was sobbing. That's why my camera's been off. And I feel that's the story of Ellie, all of it, it was just incredibly moving, incredibly inspiring. And yeah, I was sobbing also, Elkie, when you came back on camera. So, and I appreciate what Ellen said, that, you know, it's a sign that you care, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm just new to this. However, just to say, I did start something called the Joy of Giving Back for a large global company that we have called Maple Bear Global Schools. These are Canadian schools around the world and we use, I just wanted to throw what we did. We used the Canadian icon, Terry Fox, to inspire, like when you were talking about different ideas to engage children and various things, I thought, okay, who better than Terry Fox, who is a walking example of empathy and caring and grit and because we were also trying to teach Canadian, because these are Canadian schools in foreign countries, in Brazil in particular. So these are Brazilians who've never heard of Terry Fox. We introduced Terry Fox to Brazil, to a whole generation of children. But the idea was that these were privileged children attending our private Canadian schools around the world. And while we never wanted them to think badly about their privilege, because they were just born that way, that's just how it happened. But they now had to recognize that privilege gave them a responsibility to give back in their communities. And we had runs around. It was really an interesting program. But what I wanted to say was that once you instill it, it's the gift that just keeps on giving. So during the pandemic, when all of our schools were closed because of the pandemic, so many of our children got together and got food kitchens. And I mean, the ethos was planted, but we used a Canadian as our way in. They could run. We called it actually a Terry Fox Thanksgiving at first, because we thought, oh, let's teach them about Canadian Thanksgiving, whatever. But the idea was that it carried on. So it is so true that you gave them a cause, you explained to them that they understood why they were doing this, and they engaged their parents, we engaged teachers, et cetera, et cetera. So that was incredibly, it was great to watch that. But now I retired, and my daughter started an environmental not-for-profit education center in Costa Rica, where she's living in rural Costa Rica. So now I'm in this new situation of, okay, said to my daughter, I'll be the fundraiser for that. So now I'm just trying to, so how do we engage children? Because this is environmental education. So this is a whole different piece. So I just wanted to say that listening also to Ellen, I was just like, I feel like I found my people here. The idea that, narrative driven, because I right away got like an idea within 3 seconds, like, oh, okay, my daughter had these local children, planted children's forests. It's their forest, they'll come back every year. And immediately I thought, great, I'll go get the stories of these children. Anyways, I'm talking way too long, so carry on. I just want to reaffirm, I was crying, that I'm incredibly inspired by what's been said here today. And of course, Bruce, also, I want to get into the mechanics of now, okay, so how do we I want to engage children, but mostly, let's face it, I want to engage their parents for the big, let's face it, for the big ticket money that could support different projects. So that's, I guess, my question. We engage children. I'm trying to engage multi-generational families. So my question, if we can now move that conversation, how do we, by focusing on families, you know, the boomer grandparent, and then the young person, the millennial, how do we then now put that into, you know, I don't want to say this in a crass way, a big check, and big check doesn't have to be a lot of money, $1,000, $500 towards a project. So any ideas around that would be incredibly helpful. Thanks. I got to get Kleenex myself now.
Okay, can I maybe offer? I saw that Jen had her hand up as well.
But
maybe
why
just,
don't you answer, and then we can go to Jen.
okay, I just wanted to maybe offer two thoughts. One was it's so interesting that the pattern that you see already just from 3 examples of how people with passion are essentially changing the world. And what's really interesting to me is that one of the things that we spend a bit of time thinking about is where the future of this kind of generous spirit will come from. Because if you actually study philanthropy and you talk to older, wealthy Canadians who give, significantly, they often talk about where they learned to give. And for many of them, it was their place of worship. They watched their parents put money in a collection plate or whatever instrument that particular faith used. But we live in an increasingly secular society. So I always use I flip to a good, sports team metaphor here. Our farm team is not doing well. And so what does it mean for the future of generosity if where most philanthropists are saying, I learned to give by witnessing and participating in actions that inspired me to care about my community beyond just my family or myself. And if that group isn't as big as it used to be, I think the very examples that we just heard about are going to be what's needed to connect people to their neighbors, to people they don't even know, to their communities. So these are really, I think, important examples because the way philanthropy has been created is changing. And then Robin, I guess more specifically to your point, I think you're already halfway there. If the kids are engaged, the parents will get engaged. I guess the question is, how do you create tactics that invite the young people to be those ambassadors to more rigorously and strategically engage their parents as they do become engaged with a real authentic kind of connection? Usually the dollars flow.
If I can just jump in for 2 seconds and to answer Robin's question too, is as a financial advisor in my world, my responsibility goes beyond accumulation of assets and growth of net worth. A true advisor has to help people also give meaning to their wealth, and because everybody's going to the same place at the end of the day. Some are going to be accepted upstairs and some not so much. But generally speaking, let's pretend we all go to the same place. You can't take that lamp with you. You can't take that cottage with you, right? So what you probably want, and when you talk to families about their plan and also depletion of their assets as their legacy capital, you want to give meaning to that. And it's also, philanthropy is a really good glue to keep the family together. Do we have the same values? What values are the ones that define this family? How do we deplete this net worth? Who do we want to help? Because if you don't help a charity, you know who you're going to help? CRA. It's one or the other, right? And there are 1,000,003 ways of being philanthropic and tax savvy at the same time. So don't expect philanthropy to happen overnight. But if you get them involved, you get the values conversation going, and we have an entire process for that, then you can slowly introduce, once they feel that they're relevant and meaningful and impactful, you can show the how. What you're looking is you're solving for will, we can show the how later on. So Robin, I'm happy to take it offline with you and I can show you what we do. So you can take it yourself and literally copy and run with it. But I wanted to give a few seconds to Jen, and I'll take over for Caroline because her sound is a little off today. But to give an opportunity to other charities to talk about what they do and just give you an idea of the breadth and depth of possibilities here. So Jen, over to you.
Thanks, Elke. I appreciate the opportunity. And folks, I apologize, I was late joining. And Emily, I joined right as you were speaking, and I need to tell you that what you shared was exactly the message I needed to hear today. You have, by what you shared, you've affirmed again for me, sort of my way of moving through the world, my approach. So thank you for that. And I want to say a little bit more to you, but just for context, folks, I am grateful to work with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada, supporting people in Canada living with blood cancers, supporting them through services, support services to help them navigate the blood cancer experience. We also at LLSC, part of our mission is really to cure blood cancers in Canada and be part of the collaboration that cures blood cancers around the world. And also to advocate for people living with blood cancer. I'm getting the business part out of the way right now, because I do want to share with you some of the great things that happen, and how, by making an investment with one's wealth into, there are so many great causes. Elke, you said this. I mean, I loved it. I wrote it down. You said, change the discourse into something positive and be colorblind. So there are so many amazing causes out there. So by virtue of, I'm always grateful to anyone who is considering taking their wealth and giving it to make a change in the world. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada is where I happen to represent right now. But if someone is considering a place to make a change, there are so many great causes. I do want to share that the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is a great place to invest some of one's wealth, because the research that happens in blood cancer is, because blood cells are really easy to access, the research that happens in blood cancer is actually very applicable, and research advances are being applied to a number of different cancers and other illnesses as well. So in terms of a great place to invest, you're getting good bang for your buck. But more importantly, Emily, I wanted just to elaborate a little bit. I have had the good fortune in my career to work with a number of different charitable organizations. And in one of those, I had the opportunity to work a large extent with young people, mostly high school and some in university, and to provide an opportunity for them to be philanthropic, to get involved in a cause. And I have to say that for me, the outcome of having my career be in philanthropy and charity and fundraising is really to inspire people like all of you around this table, and Emily, you as a young person, to feel what it feels like in your guts to do something that has an impact. Right. And you said this, Emily, and then so to take that and apply it to whatever it is in this world that you feel passionate about making a change in. So thank you for being one of those people who's doing that. And you're right. You have so much power to change the world and influence your peers. Bruce, to your point, Emily and her peers are going to provide that example that maybe we're not getting in religious settings anymore. So I don't know, more power to you. We need more of you. And for those of us who are at a different space in our lives, as much as we can encourage our young people to be change makers and feel that, let's keep at it, honestly. So I don't know. I've been on the call a short time and you've made an incredible impact and affirmation for me. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Jen. I literally have no words for that. Thank you. I don't deserve that, but like watching your reactions too when I was speaking it meant so much. I felt it was good. I was like, okay, I should keep going.
You're doing great. I didn't
Thank
cry.
you. I'm surprised I didn't cry. I am notorious for like barely being able to get my last paragraph out, but I did it.
Yes, you did.
Thank you so much. I think when I hear about people like you, and you guys are my superheroes, because, you know, like I see in my head, like all the kids that you're working with, and knowing that they get to experience that same feeling that you described. It's, you know, it's better than any material item, or there's so much like for young people like me, that instant gratification, social media, you know, like even like other things that, you know, are just not important at the end of the day. Like once you actually do something that, and you have this moment of realization, like, oh my God, I just did a really good thing. And like, you don't get anything in return, but that's why it feels so good. And I think like that, hearing that you give that opportunity to young people just makes me so happy. And people like Ellen and Elke and you and Bruce, like spreading this message, you guys are all my superheroes. So thank you for what you do, because you allow for kids like me to have these chances. So thank you.
Keep going, girl. Keep going. Keep going.
And now that you say keep going, girl, let me just tell you a little bit of Opportunity International, that is essentially microfinancing for women that don't necessarily want charity. They just want the opportunity to promote their businesses, and the organization worldwide. So in Opportunity International Canada deals with Colombia and Nicaragua and a bunch of, like, I have the little book here, because Rubach Wealth actually partnered with them to promote, you know, giving women an opportunity to just prove themselves. And like good microfinancing, the performance is great and the delinquency is low. And then you just allow people to have a real opportunity. So you're promoting social mobility, helping, giving the helping hand. And I know what it is as a woman to start a business, again, colorblind and everything blind, but it's hard, right? You're responsible for the children, responsible for the business, responsible for this. So if you can help people who, with $500, they can really start their business and run with it, it's great. So if a lot of $500 collect, then you're improving an entire population, right? Because obviously cost of living in Nicaragua is a lot lower than in Canada. So your impact is so much greater. So I would show you the book, but then my camera is not. You see, very cute little book here with girls. And we can send it to you a PDF later on. But anyway, let's open it up. Any other questions? We're almost at the end. Any other questions?
I don't have an answer for that.
Alexa says she doesn't have an answer for that. But any other questions? We are, for the first time, we are going to share this video, and if you don't mind, everybody share it like crazy. Let's set a challenge and see if we can all beat Emily with her social media. and just share it, right? It's a matter of awareness, looking a little bit sideways and not just forward, and helping people avoid the confusion that comes in the later years when you've defined yourself by your profession and fear how am I going to be relevant later on? What's going to keep me meaningful? And not, retirement before was very easy. You worked till 65 and you died at 70. So financially you were relatively set, and that was doable. But now, not only financially do you need to be responsible and aware, it's purpose. What are you going to do for a third of your life? I mean, if everything goes well. So, what kind of link are you asking for, Jen? You're mute.
No, Carolyn just shared the link to Opportunity International, which is great. And again, apologies that I missed the beginning, but I would love to at least, if any of the others who presented could share a link for me to be able to do a little bit of catch up, I'd appreciate it greatly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll share the video and we'll share the links and then we'll post it on social media. And, it's Giving Tuesday is in, call it 4 days. Let's just blow it out of the park and see what happens. Make it a better place and have happy ending to 2021 and let's get into more mischief for 2022. Okay, so if there are no other questions, we'll close it there. Thank you to everyone. It was unreal. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. Bruce, thank you so much. You are amongst, I don't know how many women here, but you seem to be and David, so there's 2, yes. So thank you for those who, and Scott, there's Scott, but I think Scott is Scott and, so, okay. Thank you, I don't know what else to say. Let's wrap up. Everybody exchange contact information, get curious, get active. And honestly, the best way to teach the next generation about philanthropy is just doing it. And philanthropy doesn't necessarily mean cutting $1 million check. It's getting involved, time, talent, or treasure, or at least having the conversation. And it always ends up better. So thank you, everyone. A big round of applause to the speakers and Emily. And we'll see you. Have a great weekend, a great rest of your year. Happy holidays to everyone. And we are here for anyone who wants to teach the next generation how to talk about it if you really need.
And Alki, thanks for pulling this together. I mean, it's an important forum. Really appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure, anytime.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
Elke.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.